This week brings another giant haul of horrors on the printed page. Remember, these are simply previews of what's new in comic shops this week, not reviews. Here's what's new in horror comics, August 3rd, 2022. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. I'll be at C2E2, the Chicago Comics and Entertainment Expo at the McCormick Place just south of downtown Chicago this year. I'm setting up shop in Artists Alley at table W5. So if you're in the Chicago area and want to check out some cool horror comics, swing by my table where I am premiering a new comic compilation of some horror short stories, young and old. It's called Scaries, and it'll be available only at C2E2 this year. Come by the booth, check out my comics, and let's chat about horror. I hope to see you there. Let's check out This Week in Comic Book Horror, August 3rd, 2022. Giant-sized Two-Fisted Manly Tales number 1 is from Compass Comics. The story is by Graham Nolan, Chuck Dixon, Mike Baron, Kevin Grevioux, Beau Smith, and Tim Rozon, with art by Butch, Guice, Larry Stroman, David Williams, Kelsey Shannon, Roberto Castro, Andrew Paquette, Michael Golden, and Dan Lawlis. So some will say this is a book about toxic masculinity, but I say just because it has the word manly in the title doesn't mean it's against women. It's just focused on stuff that, through the years, historically, has interested more of a male readership. I'm willing to bet there are a few women out there that will dig this one too. With special months and series dedicated to all sorts of walks of life and ways of thinking, demonizing a book because it chooses to write about more traditionally action-oriented stuff before even reading it sounds pretty ignorant to me. Just say it's not for you and walk away. Or don't. Condemning it just doesn't make sense to me in this day of free will and free spirits. Still, it's got one hell of a great list of talent attached to it, talent that influenced a lot of the same people condemning the book if they really took the time to look inward. I might be wrong. I might not. I mean, on the cover, it's got a dude punching a werewolf. How bad can that be? Usher of the Dead, The Great Question, number 1, is from Blood Moon Comics. The story is by Keith Rommell, with art by Klaus Schwandt. This special issue looks deeper into what it takes for the lead character to be Usher of the Dead. It's titled The Great Question, which is nice and ambiguous, referring to the question of what happens after we die. But for me, the great question, whether or not Usher will be in this comic, is still left unanswered. Swamp God number 6 is from Heavy Metal magazine. The story is by Ron Marz, with art by Armitano. This issue concludes the first arc of Swamp God, a book that sort of read like a rejected Swamp Thing or Man Thing script, but still manages to be full of mucky goodness and some great green goppy art. American Mythology Monsters number 3 is from American Mythology. The story is by S.A. Czech, Glenn Moane, and Konstantine Paradias, with art by Horacio Domingues, Elmer B. Cantada, and Jorge Pacheco. This new series promises to reimagine classic old-school monsters and will do so in 3 tales in this very issue. Look for resurrected children, demonic lovers, and trains destined for the unknown in this new anthology series. Golden Range number 1 is from Image Comics. The story is by Chrissy Williams, with art by Lauren Knight. I'm willing to give this premise a try. It's described as The Golden Girls meets Battle Royale, about an island where old women who have been deemed useless are sent to battle it out to the death. Not sure why this occurs or why it's only happening to the women, but I'm willing to roll with it as long as these battles aren't something lame like taking one of the tennis balls away from a walker or hiding the Activia drinks. Godzilla Rivals 2, Batra number 1, is from IDW Publishing. The story is by Rosie Knight, with art by Oliver Ono. It's round 2 of the series Rivals, where Godzilla takes on some of the biggest and baddest of Toho monstrosities. I'm not too familiar with Batra, but it looks like a giant screaming mad hornet. Looks like good old Godzilla has a big battle on its hands with this one. Philadelphia number 24 is from Image Comics. The story is by Rodney Barnes with art by Jason Shawn Alexander. With Vampire King George Washington back in office as President of the United States, it's up to a pair of vampire killers to take him out. The horrifying revisionist history of America continues in this book. Aquaman Andromeda number 2 is from DC Comics. The story is by Ram V, with art by Christian Ward. When a plague has been unleashed aboard an underwater ship, things get worse when black mana becomes involved. I haven't caught up with the first issue yet, but this promises to be a more horror-themed take on Aquaman, and I'm dying to read it. The Walking Dead Deluxe number 44 is from Image Comics. The story is by Robert Kirkman, with art by Charlie Adlard. The governor begins his assault on the prison, and it looks like, by that awesome David Finch cover, that it leaves Rick in pretty bad shape. Because I have the originals, I haven't been getting this series, but apparently not only are the reprints presented in color for the first time, but each issue offers creator commentary and parts left on the cutting room floor. That might warrant a look. The Closet number 3 is from Image Comics. The story is by James Tynion IV, with art by Gavin Fullerton. A father and son continue their trip across the country to a new home on the West Coast, but the monster from the son's closet seems to have followed them as this intimate and existential horror continues. Ghost Rider number 5 is from Marvel Comics. The story is by Benjamin Percy, with art by Corey Smith. When you have a Ghost Rider comic, every now and then there's got to be a race for your soul. This issue features some of the coolest motorcycle riders from across the Marvel Universe to take part in a death-defying death rally, and Johnny Blaze finds himself in a race he simply cannot lose. I'm loving this gritty series so far. Vineyard number 1 is from Aftershock Comics. The story is by Brian Hawkins, with art by Sammy Cavella. This comic has a killer premise. It's about a vineyard owner who has vowed to make a human sacrifice every season to Dionysus, the god of wine, in order to have a good crop. But when the owner passes away, his wife must carry the burden of killing innocents on in order to keep the tradition going. I love this folksy horror vibe, and that twisted cover is quite awesome. DC vs. Vampires, number 8, is from DC Comics. The story is by James Tynion IV and Matthew Rosenberg, with art by Daniel DiNicuolo and Otto Schmidt. Join Supergirl, Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Batgirl as they continue their bloody battle against a world overrun with vampires. Sure, it's in Elseworlds. It's not happening in the real DC universe, but this book's got some serious blood and guts from cover to cover. Spawn, number 332, is from Image Comics. The story is by Rory McConneville, with art by Carlo Barberi. While I guess I haven't covered this book here, Spawn is a horror comic. It's a deal with the devil story created by one of the biggest creative forces in comics, Todd McFarlane. It's sad to see he isn't writing it, but I'm sure he still supervises the whole thing, and the art is usually some of the best and most extreme in the biz. Join Spawn in his never-ending quest for his soul. Little Monsters number 6 is from Image Comics. The story is by Jeff Lemire, with art by Dustin Gwen. After discovering the human settlement nearby, the old vampires in young bodies find themselves split into two fractions. One who wants to drain them all dry of blood, and one who wants to form an alliance with them. Which side will win? The conclusion of this first arc sets the stage for the future of this series. Sacrament number 1 is from AWA Upshot. The story is by Peter Milligan, with art by Marcello Frusin. I'm all in for this new twist on the exorcism genre. It's The Exorcist meets Alien, as a priest is called to a remote space colony to take on what seems to be alien supernatural demons. With tried-and-true horror scribe Peter Milligan at the helm, this one's got to be good. Finally, Razor Blades Small Cut Special number 1 is from Image Comics. The stories are by James Tynion IV, with art by Martin Simons and Josh Hickson. Can't wait to dig into this collection of short stories by Razor Blades creator James Tynion IV. Tynion is all over the horror scene these days, and there are many doses of terror in each and every short story in this anthology. That's it for this week's haul. I'll be picking up a bunch of these titles this week, including Razor Blades, Sacrament, Vineyard, Little Monsters, The Closet, Ghost Rider, Aquaman Andromeda, and of course, giant-sized two-fisted Manly Tales. Also, don't forget to see me at C2E2 this week. I'll be at table W5. Hopefully you'll be there and you can pick up a copy of my own comic, Scaries. How about you? Let me know which ones look good to you down in the comments.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're